Rack and stack, installing cable management. By the time we're done here, you will be able to select and install needed cable management in a network environment. I can't tell you how excited I am to finally reach this nugget, the cable management installation. It's as if we've walked into a house with laundry all over the floors. And I've been saying, well, we need to get a dresser and we got to get some hangers in place and all this kind of stuff. All the stuff that's needed to get these clothes off the floor. And finally we can say, let's put the clothes away. Now, if you're a person who lives with clothes all over the floor of your house, you might initially wonder when you get into this, is cable management technically necessary? And I want to make sure I'm crystal clear right from the beginning. Technically, no. What I mean is that cable will be able to transmit whatever data is being sent, whether it's going through 50 twists and turns through this entire rat's nest right here, or it goes down a straight line straight through the rack and through whatever destination it's going to. However, if I were to say, does cable management matter from a functional and psychological standpoint? Absolutely yes. And I'm defining psychologically, as Google does, in a way that affects the mind or relates to the emotional state of a person. Imagine your emotional state if you were to walk in to manage a network that looks like this versus a network that looks like this. Let me jump straight to this thought, which I've shared previously in this series. Need cabling typically translates to an organized network. If I were to walk into a network like this, I would expect that they would have no network documentation, or at least documentation that's up to date. It would probably be a very reactionary network where there's always something breaking and they're constantly running to figure out what that is and fix it. This one likely a proactive network where there's proper network monitoring in place. There's proper cable maps. I'm not saying that's reality. I'm just saying usually if an organization takes the time to make their network look like this, there's a whole lot of respect, maturity, and processes surrounding the whole thing. Now there are some technicalities, as in the wire mesh can impede airflow. Network devices typically suck air in from the front and blow out the hot air from the back. If you have cables in the way blocking that, you can shorten the lifespan of your devices. This one has nailed me many a times where I'm trying to get a device in or out of the rack and I'm snagging cables, it's binding up around my device and I cause a network outage because I have to pull it a little further and the cable snaps or pulls out of place. I've unknowingly ripped network cards out of servers because I couldn't see that the network card was plugged in through the cable mesh and I was trying to slide the server out. So overall, cable management will increase your efficiency and ease of use when you're doing maintenance or performing tasks on the devices in the rack. And can I emphasize that this is an ongoing discipline? This isn't a one-time thing. Now, obviously, something happened in that picture up there that made it a one-time event to clean it all up. But all it's going to take, and I've seen this so often, is one person coming in and saying, oh, I just need to run a patch cable from this one over here to this switch. And you see this orange cable that's drooping down in there. That's all it takes. The next person that comes in is like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to do the same. And it doesn't take too long before you end up back in square one. Now, compared to this, our little network doesn't look so bad. But if we don't do something from the beginning and put policies in place, it's not too long before it gets there. If you were to go to Google and search for network cable management and then hop on over to the images, you would see that there are so many different options of cable management available to you. And also probably a whole lot of case studies. Like, take a look at that guy. That no matter how bad your situation is, you can immediately feel better about yourself. I would actually encourage you at some point in this video to pause and do that Google search yourself and explore the jelly bean jar full of options of cable management that's available. I'm going to hit the core options that you see in just about every network environment. First off, the horizontal cable management. You can see that cables will run horizontally through the rack and connect either from patch panels to switches to routers to all the different devices that you can have in there. There are two primary options that you have available. This guy, you can see actually right there, is usually a 1U or 2U cable manager with these things called D-rings that hold the cables in place. These are definitely better than nothing because they keep the cables in line. However, they require a lot of discipline on your part that all these cables have to be the right length, or else, think about it, what are you going to do with the extra cable? They'd be, shooting out this way and that way. That's why I usually go for one of these types of slotted duct cable management. You can see all of these teeth that look almost like little combs coming out of it. You would take your cable and run it in from the side and then fish it out those individual combs to whatever devices they need to go to. There's also holes in the back where you can fish cable in from the back of the rack into the middle and then out the comb. And then you have this glorious piece of plastic that you can slide in front of the cables and hide whatever unsightly mess you've created inside of there. That's good when you don't have cables that are the perfect length to every single device. You might wind the cable back and forth inside there a couple times and then come out. There are also vertical options available. These are the cable managers that slide on the side of the racks. And they usually come in these two forms, just mounted vertically. Your cable runs through the plenum space, as much as possible, should be kept together and wire tied. And when I say wire ties, use Velcro, not the plastic zip ties, or you'll find yourself constantly cutting your wire ties back off to fish in another cable. And finally, yes, cable length does matter. Have you seen the rack we're assembling in this series? The patch panel and the switches are now just a couple inches apart. And yet we have these 5-foot, 10-foot, 7-foot cables that are drooping down to the floor and then back up just to connect the patch panel to the switch. Buy the cable length that makes sense. No, it doesn't have to be taut. As a matter of fact, it shouldn't be pulling on either side of the connection when you connect the cables in there. However, you don't want so much excess that it makes cable management impossible. They sell pre-made cables in just about every length you could desire. All right, I got my 2U cable manager and I'm ready to rock. But before we just shove this in there, I'm gonna do a little bit of cleanup on the rack as a whole. First, let's clean up all of the cables behind here. So I'm gonna unlatch this. Now, keep in mind, if this is your first time to a rack like this that somebody else installed, open it very slowly because you never know what somebody else did. They may have put those cables so tight in the back that as you turn this, you rip it out of the patch panel and you just caused an outage while you're trying to repatch all these cables back in a hurry. You don't want to do that. So open it really slow, make sure there's no tension coming in. There we go. Now take a look at this. I've got my 3 cables that we fished earlier in the series that have yet to go through any kind of cable management. And I just noticed as I looked at this that I totally missed running one of these guys through this little hook. Now that's already patched into the patch panel, so I don't want to rip that out. I'm literally going to take a screwdriver, remove that hook, fish it through, and then put it back in. Get this guy unscrewed. Somebody took my power drill, but I'm not bitter. Pull it off. Fish that guy behind and screw him back in. Now I'm also going to take these cables through the Velcro cable management, but I've got a little extra here, so I'm going to push that up into the ceiling before I put it through the Velcro cable management. And I'll start bundling these all in, starting close to the patch panel. There we go, that's looking nice. Now when it comes to the inside of this rack, I want to get these wires as out of the way as I can, so I'm going to try and take this bundle and wire tie it up to the top of the rack. There's some holes up there. Take this nice long Velcro strip. There we go. Now we can close this thing up and get back to the front. Now, brief note, I'm installing one cable management unit right here. Ideally, I'd want a piece of cable management between every single device. Get a little 1U cable manager between the switches, put one switch on top of the patch panel, one switch on the bottom of the patch panel, put cable management between there, literally to where everything goes through some form of cable management. But that's always the scale you have to play. You're sacrificing rack space to make sure that your cable management looks good. So you have to weigh, is my cable management more important between every device, or am I going to run out of space in my rack for all the essential devices that I need? In this case, we need some devices to go at the bottom here, so I decided to just put one unit of cable management right here. That's not always the best decision. In this case, it's the necessary decision. Slide this guy in. I don't know what this little wire is doing here. There we go. Then we'll screw it in. You always want to make sure that your cable manager fits with the door closed. It's always a buzzkill to get everything in there, cables looking good, and then you go to close the cabinet door and find out this is too big. In this case, I've tested it beforehand. Good. Now we'll pop the plastic cover off. Now the fun part. We get to replace all of these cables with cables that are the right size. Now the key is knowing what size to get. We have to think, okay, cables are going to come down from the patch panel. We'll be fishing them through these combs right here, down through the cable management and connecting to the device. So initially when you look at this, you go, okay, well, I would say cables that are a foot long might work right there. But then you also have to think about, what about the things that patch in that are maybe below these switches? Maybe I'm going to mount a device down here, like a router or a UPS power supply that needs to be connected to the network, and I need to run the cable from here down to this. Well, you don't want to cut across the front of your device like this, so you'll take it from the patch panel into the cable manager, through the hole on the back, down the side, and then into whatever cable manager you have down here, if you had one, and we would have one in place, and back through the hole in the back of that one. So what you initially think is just a single foot run might actually fish around and through and snaking and et cetera, that goes 2 or 3 feet to reach the actual device. Not to mention that sometimes the network ports on these devices are in the back. Last key worth mentioning before we do this is make all the cables the same color. The only exception to that is perhaps there's 1 or 2 key ports that come in that maybe feed an entire another building. You might have those cables be red and all the rest of them blue or some other color scheme like that. So let me go grab my box of cables. Now, based on the location of the ports on the switch and how I'm gonna have to come down from port 1, fish it through and then down, I decided to go with 2-foot patch cables for this one. So I'm using 2 foot all the way down. Oh, I also forgot one other important thing, and I've mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. If you can, going from port 1 to port 1, port 2 to port 2, so patch panel to switch port mappings is fantastic, and I understand that's not always possible at all, especially when you have 2 28-port switches. You'll obviously reach a point where you get to port 28 and have to start over, and we have port 29 going to port 1, etc. But as close as you can come to that, the better. Again, the key in all those situations is to make sure that your documentation is fully accurate on which port connects to which switch port. Old, long, ugly cable out. New short cable in. Fishing across, back down. And port 1 is connected. All right, it's done. And it took so long that I changed my shirt and got a haircut. We've got a major problem though. Take a look at this. Perfect storm, 2 28-port switches stacked on top of each other where all the ports are on the right-hand side. What did that cause? We end up having all the cables fished down here from the patch panel. Look at this. It's wide open right here, but as it moves over to the right-hand side, it just smashes up. That's so thick. There is no hope that I can even hope to get these cables smashed into that cable manager by any means. It just explodes out and then comes down here to the switches. So functionally we're working, but from a cable management point of view, it's a mess. Based on where we're at, there's probably 3-4 different approaches that we could take. And one of them that's not an option is just leave it the way it is. That's not good. Approach number 1, we could go up and over. This entire top row of cables on the patch panel, we can actually take them, plug them in, and fish them over the top and down in through the back of the cable manager to where the cables are coming in from the back like this. The advantage that gives us is we now have 24 of these cables pressed against the back as we would then fish them down into this switch down here. It would eliminate this giant wad. If I had really skinny long fingers, I can actually take them and slide them all the way through that cable manager. There's probably a gap like that in the back of space just because I can't push these guys in because they're all coming in through the front and that tension is right there. So fishing them up and over would allow me to run them through the back, and it would save me having to get more cable management and eat up more of my rack space. This, again, if space is at a premium. The drawback of doing that is now you've blocked off the back of your patch panel. It's going to make it really hard to patch in more cables. Not impossible because you can just scoot them all over, but really hard to patch in more cables as we add them in the future. Approach number 2 would be to add another cable manager below this switch right here. What that would allow us to do is then take the cables from the second row and bring them down and in and up. Yes, the 2-foot cables probably wouldn't work for that. We would need a little bit longer cable, but that would then take the advantage. I would probably part the seas, fish half the cables down the left side of this rack and in the cable manager down here and up, half of the cables down the right side of the rack in the cable manager right here and up into the switch. And that would just eat up 1 or 2 units more of space just for the cable management. The third approach that I can think of is what we talked about originally, where I could actually move this entire thing down, move the patch panel down a little bit more, mount one of these switches, probably the top switch, above it, the second switch below it. Then we could take half the cables, move them up through a cable manager that we would install there, so that would be our extra cable manager, into the switch. Half the cables we would run down into the bottom switch. That's probably the best strategy that we would have. And all that would cost me is time. Time. A lot of time. I don't think there's avoiding that no matter which strategy I go with. I'm going to go with option number 3, the strategy I discussed right at the beginning of moving everything down, putting a switch on top and a switch on the bottom. All right, so I found this Panduit cable manager from a guy out on the street, and it made me think of yet another strategy that we could have used. If you look at this cable manager, it's a little higher quality than the one I've got up right there. We've got the standard short ones, very similar to that one, except it's a little broader, so you're not quite fishing them so individually through these smaller forks in there. And we could go that way and try that route. Probably end up with the same result. But if you look at this, you can actually flip it around and you get this really deep cable management. I mean, a lot of space to shove cables in there. Now, you might look and go, well, obviously that's going to come right out the front of the rack. Well, almost all of these racks that are enclosed like this, you can move the entire frame. So I could literally unscrew this guy and move the whole thing back, which then this would fit in there. The drawback of doing that is then you want to make sure that you have very short devices inside of here. Now, these switches are fine. I'm thinking about the UPS that we have. That one might get a little smushed if I scoot this back because it's a little bit longer in there. A lot of the rack mount servers are a little bit longer. So you want to really make that consideration. That being said, even with that strategy in place, I'm still going to go with our original design of moving everything down. I'll just use this front forks above the patch panel. Well, I'm back at 5 in the morning and I'm on to my third outfit now for this cable management video. This ends now. I'm starting to feel like Vanna White. I've got a new outfit for every scene. So the easiest way to do this is going to be to disassemble what we have here, move everything around, and then put it all back in place. So I wanted to come at a time when nobody is in the office. I'm ready. Let's get going. Phase 1 complete. Everything's out. That new cable management is looking good. Let's just make sure the door closes all the way. It does. Good. Let's make sure the door closes all the way with that cover on. It doesn't. I'm glad I checked. That's going to be too tight. I got to move these rails back just a little bit. There we go. That's better. When it comes to the cable manager, I would vote for the Panduit. This little StarTech guy is good, but this just has just a nice touch. Just even the rack screws fitting into the little holes so perfectly. It's as if it's like this is carnations, this is roses. Your wife wants the roses. Ta-da! You know what? I am going to take that bottom plate out of there just so I can run the power cords down the back for the time being. There's the familiar hum of my IT room. I've missed you, old friend. Well, let's recable. The glob. You know, there's really two major mindsets on connecting the patch panel to the switch. One is you go 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, so the patch panel ports line up to the switch ports. The other is that the switch ports have certain functions, like ports 1 through 20 might be the client devices. Ports, 21 through 24 are the WAPs and things like that. I usually subscribe to the patch panel to switch port mappings, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, because the devices change so often. You'll eventually blow up your own scheme. Oh, well, this site has 5 WAPs. They only had 4 ports, so we kind of shift it all around like that. Tip of the day. When you're doing this, you want to start with the ports closest to the cable management. In the case of the top switch, it's going to be the bottom ports so that the ports on top can overlay the cables on the bottom. That means I'm actually going to run port 13 first. You might also notice that I'm fishing the cable to the right with these bottom ports. I'm planning to go to the left with the top ports. To the right, to the right, to the left, to the left. If I were to do this all over again, I'd probably use 1-foot cables at this point. But I'm not doing it all over again. By the time you get 24 cables jammed in there, it's gonna start getting a little bit twisty. Don't be discouraged, that's okay. You're taking 24 2-foot cables and putting them into this little 2-inch space. It's bound to get a little bit messy. But this is also why I love patching in all 24 ports all at once, is I never have to do this again. And now the plastic piece that makes it all go away. It's beautiful. Top switch done. Now that I'm onto the bottom, I'm going to start with the top ports going up to the patch panel. Good. I've got up to patch panel port 41 patched into the bottom switch now, and I'm going to stop there. If I had a whole bunch of switches just sitting around, I would probably add yet another one here and patch the rest of them in. But for now, I need this real estate on the switch because I'm going to have other devices in the rack that need to plug in directly to this guy. Woo, my favorite part. Well, at least the rack looks good. The rest of this, I've got to clean up. Well, there you have it. Before cable management, after cable management. And I want to make sure you guys catch, this isn't just a neat freak thing. Engineers who care what the network rack looks like are almost always the ones who care about proper documentation, about following standards, about doing things well as you move up in the layers of technology. Furthermore, based on the approach that we've taken, we now have a system. Every functional patch panel port is connected directly to the switch on the correlating port number. As we plug devices in throughout this building, they will come online with the switch connection. It's no longer something we even have to think about. At the beginning of this nugget, I said you will be able to select and install needed network cable management. So here's what I want you to do. Research the cable management options available, both vertical and horizontally mounted, and put together a price list for the top 3 options you would like to use, listing the benefits of each type of cable management. Then, determine which one is best for your installation, purchase, and install it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.